All right, welcome back, everybody. It's Bruce with the Epic Experiment, and we're back. Another week, another deck tech. This week, we're doing something a little bit different. Up till this point, you guys have seen me do lots of like Jund or black-green decks or Abzan. Very clearly, I have a penchant for black-green X decks. However, I do like other decks too. So what I'm going to show you today is the very first commander I ever built. Now, the deck has changed a great deal since its original conception, but it is still the first deck I built when I started playing Commander in 2014, and it is still something that I have kept intact and updated ever since. All right, so the Commander is Lavinia of the 10th. So 3 white-blue for a 4/4 legendary creature, human soldier. Protection from red. When Lavinia of the 10th enters the battlefield, detain each non-land permanent your opponent's control with converted mana cost 4 or less. And it says, until your next turn, those permanents can't attack or block, and their activated abilities can't be activated. All right. Originally, this was a commander that was going to be using the detain mechanic from Return to Ravnica. But as that was a little limited, I have taken the liberty of changing it up, and now it is far more of a control deck. I have this deck built because my friend Sam, when he comes to play, doesn't have a commander deck of his own. He likes to play, he loves to play with us, but he doesn't have to play Commander very often. He likes to play Cube more frequently. But when he does play Commander with us, this is what I lend him because he loves to play Control. All right, so let's talk about how Lavinia works. Lavinia is gross because that detain mechanic says you're detaining all non-land permanents with converted mana cost 4 or less. They can't attack, they can't block, and even better yet, they can't be activated. It means it turns all sorts of things off. So, let's talk about how we're going to make use of Lavinia and her abilities to slow our opponents down, get the game under control, and then win it. So, first things first, obviously you need to ramp. Our ramp package, we're playing in blue-white's a little bit tricky. So we got a Sol Ring, for sure. Everyone's got a Sol Ring. We've also got a Midnight Clock, and we have a Sky Diamond. All right, so those are the artifacts that do it. Now, could I play more? Sure, but that's what I've got. All right, we have a Stoic Farmer, and we've got a Loyal Warhound too. That's going to play in really well with something else I've got elsewhere in this deck, but those are useful ways to get extra lands into play. And then an Archaeomancer's Map. Because you're playing Azorius, you're playing blue-white, you're going to draw lots of cards, so you're going to be able to trigger Archaeomancer's Map many, many times to go and play extra lands into play. Right, so Archaeomancer's Map says 2 and a white. When Archaeomancer's Map enters the battlefield, search your library up to 2 basic playing cards, reveal them, put them into your hand, and shuffle. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under an opponent's control, if that player controls more lands than you, you may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield. As this deck draws lots of cards, you're going to be able to utilize that to great effect to keep up and maybe even pull ahead from some of your opponents. All right. Next, let's talk about how we're going to draw cards, because that's really important to make sure that we have plenty of cards and lots of interaction for our opponents. Well, we have a Treasure Cruise. Seems good. We have a Dig Through Time. All right, so 2 big draw spells we got. We got a Mulldrifter. I love Mulldrifter. You may notice it's in lots of my decks that have got blue. Mulldrifter is one of my favorite creatures of all time. And his buddy, Cloudblazer, is right alongside him. When Cloudblazer enters the battlefield, you gain 2 life and draw 2 cards. So, exactly what you want to do. All right? Then we have Esper Sentinel. So, a single white for an artifact creature, human soldier. Whenever an opponent casts their first non-creature spell each turn, draw a card unless that player pays X, where X is Esper Sentinel's power. So, going to be able to draw some cards. We're going to have Mystic Remora. Single blue, cumulative upkeep. It's an enchantment. Whenever target opponent successfully casts a non-creature spell, that you may draw a card. That player may pay 4 to counter this effect. Usually, if they probably can't use it, so pay it, so you're probably getting a card for free. All right. Then we've got 3 big X spells. We've got a Pull from Tomorrow, a Blue Sun Zenith, and a Sphinx's Revelation. I like these because they're all instant speed. So since you're naturally keeping your mana up to interact with your opponents, because you are a control deck, you're going to be able to find a spot to jam these. All right. So that's how we're going to keep our hands full. How are we going to slow our opponents down, make sure that we get a chance to actually deploy our stuff and win the game? All right, well, we've got a Thalia Heretic Cathar. 2 and a white for a 3/2. First strike, it's a legendary creature, it's a human soldier. Creatures and non-basic lands your opponents control enter the battlefield tapped. This will negate haste effects pretty readily. We also have Archon of Emeria, 2 and a white for a 2/3 with the Archon. As flying, each player can't cast more than one spell each turn. Non-basic lands your opponents control enter the battlefield tapped. So this is going to stifle them, make sure they can't cast and have a flurry of spells. Super useful. Authority of the Consuls, single white for an enchantment. Creatures your opponents control enter tapped. Whenever a creature an opponent controls enters the battlefield, you gain 1 life. Okay. Slows them down again, pads your life total. Spirit of the Labyrinth, each player can't draw more than 1 card each turn. So, if you need to slow somebody down instead of pulling ahead with cards, you can play a Spirit. Alright, we have Lavinia, Azorius Renegade. 1 and a white and a blue for a 2/2, legendary creature, human soldier. Each opponent can't cast non-creature spells with converted mana cost greater than the number of lands that player controls. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, if no mana was spent to cast it, counter that spell. This puts a damper on Discover cards, on Cascading cards, on all sorts of things that come into play for free. Azorius makes that really tough. Even Mind Sensor. So 2 and a white for a 2/1 flying flash. If an opponent would search their library, that player searches the top 4 cards of the library instead. Since we don't have Opposition Agent or something like that, even Mind Sensor is a pretty brutal effect. Even more so if you're looking to try and slow them down and make sure they can't fetch. Sometimes that's brutal. Alright, Imposing Sovereign. 1 and a white for a 2/1 human. Creatures your opponents control enter the battlefield tapped. Alright, and then last but not least, we have these two to go together. We have Angel of Jubilation. So 1 white, white, white for a 3/3. It's an angel with flying. Other non-black creatures you control get +1/+1. Players can't pay life or sacrifice creatures to cast spells or activate abilities. This protects you from sack decks, or it helps as a silver bullet to try and make sure that your opponents can't pay life. Makes it really hard for lots of decks to fight through it. And then Aether Storm, and then so 3 and a blue enchantment. Summon spells can't be played. Any player may pay 4 life to bury Aether Storm. So, what it means is you can't cast spells, and since you can't cast creature spells, and since you can't pay life, you can't remove the enchantment. Meaning that your opponents are likely locked out until such time as you're ready to start casting creatures, or you have a way to deal with things. All right, let's talk about how we're going to stop our opponents from going wild and making our life miserable. Okay, we have Insidious Will. So 2 blue for an instant. Choose 1, counter target spell. You may choose new targets for a target spell, or copy target instant or sorcery spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. Sometimes you just need to counter the thing. Sometimes you want to redirect it. So let's say they're targeting you. You want to send it on to someone else, maybe back in their face. Or maybe you want to copy it and get the effect yourself. Maybe they're going to draw some cards. I want to draw some cards. Maybe you're going to draw cards yourself, and then you want to double it so you draw twice as many. Very useful card. People don't really talk about it very much, but I think it's really good. Arcane Denial. 1 and a blue. Interrupt. Counter target spell. That player's caster may draw up to 2 cards at the beginning of the next turn's upkeep. Draw a card at the beginning of the next turn's upkeep. So it gives them 2, but it gives you 1 back as well, so it replaces itself. Sometimes that's exactly what you need. Counter spell, 2 blue, counter target spell. Negate, 1 and a blue, counter target non-creature spell. So I like this effect because there's Essence Scatter and there's Negate, which are sort of 2 halves of the same spell. In Commander, I find very frequently the non-creature spells are the ones that cause me the most grief. So having a surefire bullet for it is pretty good. We also have an offer you can't refuse. Single blue, counter target non-creature spell. Its controller creates 2 treasure tokens. We have a Pact of Negation. All right, so 0, counter target spell. At the beginning of the next upkeep, pay 3 blue. If you don't, you lose the game. This is your I need to get out of a jam. I need to stay at the table right now, and I'm all tapped out. Super effective, but hard to make and dangerous to run. Archmage's Charm, blue. So you have counter target spell. Target player draws 2 cards. Gain control of target non-land permanent with converted mana cost 1 or less. Okay, so this is really just a counter spell for blue. Sometimes you'll need it for 2 cards. I have never used the 3rd mode. Void Shatter, 1 and 2 blue. Devoid, counter target spell. If that spell was countered this way, exile instead of putting it in their owner's graveyard. We have a Commit to Memory. So the commit side, 3 and a blue. target spell or non-land permanent, put target spell or non-land permanent into its owner's library second from the top. So if you need to deal with something, you can bounce something and put it back in their library. And then the memory spell from your graveyard with Aftermath, you can play it for 4 blue. Each player shuffles his or her hand and graveyard into her library, then draw 7 cards. So a draw 7 effect, super useful. If you burned a bunch of counter spells, you need them back, and you need to refill, away you go. We have Absorb, 1 blue, counter target spell, you gain 3 life. And we have Render Silent, white blue, instant counter target spell, its controller can't cast spells this turn. Then we have ways to kill things, make sure that they don't come back. So we have Hypnotic Siren. This isn't a kill spell so much as a control magic effect, but you have single blue mana for a 1/1 as an enchantment creature Siren with flying. However, if you bestow it for 5 blue, you control enchanted creature. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1 and has flying. Stealing your opponent's things sometimes is the best way to make sure that they don't hit you with it. And you get a really powerful thing. So their powerful dragon or their powerful other praetor or something else. This card is super effective. All right, we have a reality shift. 1 in a blue, exile target creature. Its controller manifests the top card of his or her library. We have Swords to Plowshares. Single white, target creature is removed entirely from the game. That means exiled. Creature's controller gains life equal to creature's power. Now, this is an old one from Revised. The text on the new one today is a little bit different, but it's exile, target creature, they gain life equal to its power. String of Disappearances. So single blue, instant, return target creature to its owner's hand. Then that creature's controller may pay blue. If the player does, that they may copy the spell and may choose a new target for the spell. So this is like Chain of Vapor, but cheaper and only targets creatures. So it's harder for your opponents to replicate and to bounce it back, but it's super easy, cheap bounce spell, and could be potentially bounced around the table a few times. And then Angel of Sanctions, 3 white for an angel. It's a 3/4 with flying. When Angel of Sanctions enters the battlefield, you may exile target non-land permanent an opponent controls until Angel Sanction leaves the battlefield. And then you can embalm it for 5 and a white. So you exile this card from your graveyard, create a token as a copy of it, except it's a white zombie with no mana cost, and embalm only as a sorcery. So it comes back as a token. So it's like an overing effect on a creature. All right? So you have lots of ways to target individual things, to steal them or kill them or get rid of them. But sometimes you just need to reset the whole board. Okay? So we have Supreme Verdict. 1 white, blue. Supreme Verdict can't be countered. Destroy all creatures. Shadow of the Sky. 2 white. Each player who controls a creature with power 4 or greater draws a card, then destroy all creatures. Aether Spouts. 3 blue. For each attacking creature, its owner puts it on top or bottom of its owner's library. I like this because this can be really good. Let's imagine your opponents are attacking somebody else. Opponent A attacks opponent B, and you're not attacked, but it's a great opportunity to blow them out, and you can just go ahead and use it and make the attacking guy put them all back in their hand. Super mean card sometimes. Austere Command. So 4 white. You can just sorcery. Choose 2. Destroy all artifacts. Destroy all enchantments. Destroy all creatures with converted mana cost 3 or less. Destroy all creatures with converted mana cost 4 or greater. Usually this is going to mean you're going to wipe up the table with creatures, but you got other targets too. Then we have Realm Cloaked Giant. 5 white for a 7/7 vigilance, but it also has an adventure. So 3 white, it's called Cast Off. Destroy all non-giant creatures. We have Sunblast Angel. 4 white for a 4/5 angel with flying. When Sunblast Angel enters the battlefield, destroy all tapped creatures. You can get somebody pretty good with this. And then we have Perilous Vault. 4 mana for an artifact. 5 tap, exile Perilous Vault. Exile all non-land permanents. Some pretty big ways to blow up the board. And as lots of those spells don't do the trick, you can get many of them back. We have a Torrential Gearhulk, we have a Mnemonic Wall, we have an Archaeomancer. Now, you may notice lots of the things I have, the few creatures I do have end of the battlefield triggers. So the Muldrifters, the Cloud, the Cloud, I forgot what it's called now. But a lot of these creatures have end of the battlefield triggers. Same with Archaeomancer, Mnemonic Wall, Torrential Gearhulk. So over here we have a Teleportation Circle, which plays beautifully with all of those to extract a whole lot of additional value out of all your stuff, meaning you're going to get to refill your hand, put your big draw spells back in, put your counter spells back in, put your removal spells back in to be able to make sure you get control of the table. All right, let's talk about some creatures that are going to help us win the game. All right, so this is going to be a bit of an angel sub-theme. So you have a Clever Impersonator. So you may have Clever Impersonator enter the battlefield as a copy of a non-land permanent on the battlefield. I like copy effects in a deck like this because if people don't like your deck, you can say, well, I'm winning with your card. I stole it with the Hypnotic Spectre or Siren, or the Clever Impersonator. I made a copy of it. Or the Mirror Hall Mimic, same sort of thing. I make a copy of it. So I also have the effect. And there's lots of really, really good targets that you can use. But that's a surefire way that people don't really get too bent out of shape with your win condition. Diluvian Primordial. I like this card, and this one works really well with Teleportation Circle 2. 5 blue for a 5/5 avatar with flying. When Diluvian Primordial enters the battlefield, for each opponent, you may cast up to one target instant or sorcery card from that player's graveyard without paying its mana cost. If a card cast this way would be put into a graveyard this turn, exile it instead. So, like I said, you're probably going to be able to find some really good non-creature spells that you want to deal with. That's why you have the negate. But the Diluvian Primordial probably means you get to have some really good instant sorceries to draw on in your opponent's graveyard to very big effect. All right. We have Bruna, the Fading Light. So 5 white for a 5/7 legendary creature, Angel Horror. When you cast Bruna, the Fading Light, you may return target angel or human creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. So I've got a number of humans in the deck. I've got a bunch of angels. So you can go ahead and get them back. The target this is supposed to go with is Gisela, the Broken Blade, so you can meld them into Brizella. I don't have the Gisela, even though I very much would like to get one, and one day it's on my list of things to pick up, but not happened yet. Then we have Lyra Morgenbringer. This is a German version for Lyra. So 3 white for a 5/5, and she's flying, first strike, lifelink. And then she gives all of her angels +1/+1 and lifelink until end. So she's pretty awesome. And then we have Avacyn, Angel of Hope, the big baddie herself. 5 white. And she's an 8/8 legendary creature, Angel. Flying, Vigilance, Angel, Avacyn, Hope, and other permanents you control are indestructible. So when you go start board wiping, you're going to, if she's on the battlefield, you're unlikely to wipe the board of your stuff. Your opponents are going to lose theirs. Super, super good. All right, we have a couple of other interesting pieces over here that we need to talk about still. So these are a couple of creature lands. So Cave of the Frost Dragon and Fairy Conclave. So Celestial Colonnade is the usual one you play, but these are other options for creature lands that you can use to be able to attack with even after you've board wiped, to make sure that you can keep pressuring people's life totals, maybe deal with that problematic Planeswalker or something else. So, useful little lands that go in your deck and hide there pretty nicely. We have Helm of the Host, so that makes copies of other non-legendary permanents. No, I lied. It's a 4-mana legendary artifact and equipment, and at the beginning of combat on your turn, create a token that's a copy of an equipped creature, except that token isn't legendary. If the equipped creature is legendary, and that token gains haste. So you can make tokens of your big powerful creatures and use them again, get the ETBs or do all sorts of things. We have Temporal Trespass. So 5 blue. It is got Delve, take an extra turn after this one, exile Temporal Trespass. An extra turn card is not a bad thing. Sometimes you really need to put a nail in your opponent. Press the advantage. Halo Fountain. So 2 and a white for an artifact. So we have white and tap. Untap a tap creature you control. Create a 1/1 green and white citizen creature token. White, tap. Untap 2 tap creatures you control. Draw a card. And then white. So 5 whites in a row and a tap. Untap 15 tap creatures you control. You win the game. I don't think I'm ever going to be able to trigger that. I'm usually looking for mode 1 and mode 2, where I can make extra blockers or I can use them to untap things so that I can then draw some cards. Then we have win condition numero uno here. We have Approach of the Second Sun. So 6 and a white for a sorcery. If Approach of the Second Sun was cast from your hand and you cast another spell named Approach of the Second Sun this game, you win the game. Otherwise, put Approach of the Second Sun into its owner's library, 7th from the top, and you gain 7 life. So this is a win condition that you're gonna, since you're drawing a bunch of cards, you're gonna be able to take great effect and draw a bunch of and draw a way to win the game. And then we've got a couple of planeswalkers here that even if you lock yourself out of playing creatures with the Angel Jubilation and the Storm, you've got a couple of ways you can still affect the board. So Dovin Bond, 2 white blue for 3 loyalty Dovin. Until your next turn, up to 1 target creature gets -3/-0 and its activated abilities can't be activated. Not likely to plus this too often. I'm mostly going -1, you gain 2 life and draw a card. And then -7, you get an emblem with your opponents don't untap more than 2 permanents during their untap step. So that's a pretty good, that's a stacks piece too. If you can ultimate it, it's unlikely you're going to be able to. Elminster. Elminster says 3 white blue for a 5 loyalty legendary planeswalker Elminster. Whenever you scry, the next instant or sorcery spell you cast this turn costs X less to cast, where X is the number of cards looked while scrying this way. +2, draw a card, then scry 2. So you're going to be able to put cards in your hand, scry, make them cheaper. And then -3, exile the top card of your library. Create a number of 1/1 blue fairy creature tokens with equal to that card's mana value. So you can do that and set up the top to like a temporal trespass or what have you to make a bunch of fairies tokens and win the game. Or last but not least, we have Elspeth, Sun's Champion, 4 white. Elspeth, 4 loyalty, +1. Put 3 1/1 white soldier creature tokens on the battlefield. -3, destroy all creatures with power 4 or greater. And then -7, you get an emblem with creatures you control get +2/+2 and have flying. She's another way that you often win the game with that ultimate ability because you've managed to control the board, not let your opponent do much, and then you can resolve her and flood the board with creatures. All right. Now, this is not a deck I play very readily. Like I said, I keep it together for my friend Samir. Are there a lot of areas you could upgrade this deck? Yeah, there's lots of more powerful counter spells. There's lots of better targets for creatures and whatnot. But this list sort of has a nice middle ground for playing in a mid-powered pod. I would say, probably bracket 3. The number of wipes is what makes this problematic because it drags the game out. With that many ways to wipe the board, people get salty with this sort of effect and aren't always into it. So you need to be sure that this is what people want to play or the experience they're looking for, because it is a very good chance it's going to be grindier and going to be quite a bit longer. All right. If you like what you saw, you can check the deck list down below in the notes. It's all there. You can see it all for yourself. You can see the price of it. It's not outrageously expensive. There are definitely some pricey bits to it that I've acquired, like the Avacyn and the Pact of Negation and things like that. But I've been building this now for almost 10 years. So I've got, I found things in packs and put them in things. So take it with a grain of salt. All right. If you want to see more of what we got, you can check out our channel or you can check out our weekly podcast. The links are down below. You can find all of our decks on Moxfield. As always, like and subscribe. We're trying to get to 50 followers. We're almost there. Thanks so much, everybody. But a little bit further to go. So help us out. Tell a friend, like, and subscribe. All right, folks. That's it. That's all for Bruce from the Epic Experiment. Talk to you guys soon. Have a good one.